What if the loudest explosions in a war are not the ones that actually decide who wins it? What if the real battle is happening in rooms nobody sees, on nights nobody remembers? Before we go further, I need 30 seconds of your time, not for me, for the next person who watches this video confused about what is really happening in the Middle East. Hit like, tap subscribe, and send this to one person who keeps scrolling past headlines without understanding them. That is it. That is the whole ask. Now let us get into it. For several nights in a row, the United States has been hitting the same kind of target inside Iran. Not oil fields, not random missile trucks parked in the desert, something much more specific, something much more strategic. The rooms where Iranian military leaders sit down, look at maps, and decide what happens next. Most people watching this war from the outside see chaos. They see missile launches. They see drone interceptions. They see angry statements from world leaders. They see tankers catching fire in the Gulf. It looks random. It looks like two sides just throwing punches at whatever target is closest. But if you actually slow down and look at what is being hit night after night, a pattern starts to appear. And once you see it, you cannot unsee it. This is not chaos. This is not improvisation. This is a plan. A quiet, repeated, deliberate plan that most casual viewers of this war are completely missing. So let us talk about what is actually happening. Let us talk about why hitting command centers matters so much more than it sounds like it should. Let us talk about the history of this exact strategy, where it has worked before, and what it tells us about how wars like this one usually end. To understand why command centers matter this much, you first need to understand how a modern military actually works. It is not like the movies. It is not a bunch of soldiers running around making their own decisions. A modern military is closer to a nervous system. Signals come in from the field. Someone processes them. A decision gets made. Orders go back out. That entire cycle has to happen fast, over and over, thousands of times a day, across every branch of the armed forces at once. In Iran's case, coordination runs through one central structure. It sits in Tehran. It connects the Army, Navy, Air Force, and the Revolutionary Guard into a single chain. Think of it like the brain of the body. The arms and legs can still twitch without it, but they cannot move together. They cannot run in one direction with purpose. That is the entire idea behind targeting command centers instead of individual weapons. If you destroy one missile launcher, Iran loses that one launcher. Annoying, but replaceable. The rest of the system keeps working exactly the way it did before. Orders still flow. Coordination still happens. The war machine keeps moving as one connected unit, but if you go after the brain instead of the limbs, something different happens. You're not just removing one weapon. You are removing the ability to use every other weapon effectively. Soldiers can still fight. Local units can still defend their own positions. But the bigger picture, the coordination, and the ability to respond intelligently as conditions shift, that starts to fall apart. And here's the part that makes this so interesting. This kind of damage compounds. It is not a one-time hit. Every strike on command infrastructure makes the next strike more effective, because the enemy has less ability to see it coming and less ability to organize a response. It is like cutting the strings on a puppet one at a time. At first, it can move a little. Eventually, it just collapses. This is not a brand new idea invented for this particular war. Military planners have leaned on this strategy for decades because history keeps proving it works. Let us go back to one of the clearest examples. During the opening hours of the Gulf War in 1991, coalition forces did not start by grinding down Iraqi troops one tank at a time. They went straight for command centers, communication hubs, and leadership facilities. The goal was simple: freeze the brain before the body even knows it is under attack. And it worked faster than almost anyone expected. Within days, coalition aircraft controlled the skies, not because Iraq ran out of equipment, but because commanders lost the ability to coordinate response. Units were left guessing. Orders stopped arriving on time. A powerful military became a scattered one. Almost a decade later, NATO used a similar approach against Serbia in 1999. Planners specifically targeted command and leadership infrastructure inside Belgrade, based on the same core belief. A modern campaign against a regional military gets more effective once you strip away its ability to think. And once again, the results lined up with the theory. The side that could process information quickly overwhelmed. There is actually a name for the concept behind all of this. Military strategists call it the OODA loop. Observe, orient, decide, act. It is a simple idea once you break it down. Every military, every organization really, follows the same basic cycle when responding to a threat. First, you observe what is happening. Then, you orient that information against the bigger picture. Then, you decide what to do about it. Then you act. A strong, functioning command structure runs that loop in seconds. Sensors pick something up. Headquarters makes sense of it. A decision gets made. And orders go straight back out. Speed is everything in that cycle. The side that can complete it faster almost always has the advantage. Now imagine breaking that loop on purpose. Not slowing it down a little. Actually shattering it. Individual units can still observe a threat in front of them because that does not require headquarters. But without a functioning command structure, turning scattered observations into a coordinated response, that observation goes nowhere. There's no bigger picture being formed. There's no coordinated decision. There's no timely order going back out. What is left is a military stuck reacting locally. That is exactly why serious military campaigns almost always prioritize command infrastructure and air defenses first, before shifting attention to anything else, because a military that cannot see the battlefield and cannot organize a response is far less capable of protecting everything else worth striking afterward. Missile sites, naval facilities, radar stations, all of it becomes easier to hit once coordination is broken. So when you look at Iran and see the same category of target getting hit night after night, this is not random escalation. It is the same doctrine that has shaped major air campaigns. If this is helping the pieces click into place for you, that is exactly why I make these breakdowns. Take a second, tap that subscribe button, and drop a comment telling me what part surprised you most. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people who are trying to actually understand the news. Now here's a question worth sitting with. If command centers have already been hit hard, why does this keep happening? Why does the same category of target keep showing up strike after strike? Should not that job already be finished? The honest answer says a lot about how militaries survive. They do not just sit still and absorb hit after hit until nothing is left. They adapt. After watching a major headquarters get destroyed, a military does not rebuild in the exact same place. That would be handing the enemy an easy second win. Instead, command functions get split up, pushed into smaller, less obvious locations that are harder to find and harder to identify. That is almost certainly what has been happening inside Iran over the course of this war, a continuous effort to rebuild at least some coordination capability spread across a wider network than the single prominent headquarters that was destroyed in the earliest days of the conflict. And that explains why command centers keep appearing as a target category over and over. Degrading a command structure that keeps adapting and rebuilding is not a single achievement. It is an ongoing chase. Intelligence has to keep finding where rebuilt capability is hiding. Strikes have to keep landing faster than the rebuilding can happen. It is a cat and mouse game. And based on how consistently this target category keeps showing up, that game is still in progress. There's another detail worth paying close attention to, something easy to miss if only skimming. Some locations being struck sit right along critical waterways, close to strategic oil shipment points. These are not just military bases in the middle of nowhere. They are positioned in places that give them the ability to act somewhat independently, even if the central command is damaged. That matters more than it might seem. If the central brain is being systematically weakened, these semi-independent outposts become an increasingly important part of what the country can do. They do not need to wait for orders from a damaged headquarters to take action locally, which is exactly why campaigns like this one do not just target the central command structure. They target these forward nodes at the same time, weaken the brain and remove the backup. It is a two-part strategy happening in parallel, not two separate stories. Underneath all of the military strategy, there's a human cost that deserves to be acknowledged. Officials on the ground have reported significant casualties tied to strikes like these, numbers that are difficult to verify with full independent confirmation but consistent enough to be real. Wars like this one are not abstract chess games. Every strike carries real consequences for families. Even when the conversation around it focuses on strategy and doctrine, retaliation follows a pattern. Attacks and reported explosions, spreading across a wide geographic area, reaching further inland than expected. A signal that the footprint of a conflict like this rarely stays contained to the front lines. When air defenses activate somewhere unexpected, it tells you the boundaries of a war are shifting. You have made it deep into one of the more layered explanations of how modern warfare works. If this breakdown is helping you make sense of a confusing situation, share it with someone lost. That is the whole reason this channel exists, not to shout headlines, but to explain what is happening. So let us bring this all together, because there is a bigger idea here worth remembering. Out of every strategic decision, sustained pressure on command and control is arguably the one that matters. Not the single dramatic strike on a bridge, not the one tanker fire that dominates news. A military that loses its ability to coordinate becomes progressively less capable of anything but local response. That is a much harder story to tell in a single dramatic headline than a building collapsing. It does not have the same visual punch, but it shapes how the conflict ends. And even in the middle of escalating conflict, small signs of something else sometimes appear. A prisoner released, a quiet gesture that does not fit the surrounding hostility. These moments do not mean a war is ending, but they tell you something important. Even in the loudest conflicts, there is often still some thread of communication running quietly underneath. A door that has not been completely welded shut, even if nobody's walking through it yet. That is really the story hiding here. Not a war being won or lost in one night, but a slow, patient, repeated campaign aimed at the ability of a military to see and think. Strip that away piece by piece, and everything else becomes easier to unravel. So here's the question. Does systematically breaking coordination matter more than a high-profile strike? Drop your honest answer in the comments. I read every single one and want to know. If this video helped something click, hit that like button one more time. Pass this along to someone trying to understand this war. This channel grows because of you. Thank you for watching and sticking through the complexity. See you in the next one.